Rain. Blood. Metal is tearing apart. I'm Dr. Lena Petrova, and I just made the worst, or best, decision of my life. The coastal road was a black snake through the storm. I was driving home from a double shift at St. Jude's, my hands shaking from exhaustion, my mind still replaying the kid with the broken arm, the stabbing victim who didn't make it. Then, movement. Wrong movement. A black car, sleek and expensive, swerved hard. Not a loss of control. Something violent. It punched through the guardrail like paper and vanished over the cliff. No scream. Just the crunch of metal hitting rocks below. My body moved before my brain caught up. Emergency kit. Out the door. Rain was soaking through my scrubs in seconds. I scrambled down the muddy slope, heart hammering. The car was half submerged, pinned between jagged rocks. Driver's side crushed. Passenger side shattered window. I waded into the freezing water. Inside, 2 men. The driver was already gone. But in the back seat someone was moving. His face was a mask of blood, one arm bent wrong, but his eyes. God, those eyes. Sea glass green. Burning with pure will. They locked onto me. Get out, he growled, voice ragged but commanding. It's going to blow. I'm a doctor. I don't take orders from patients in shock. I shoved through the broken window. Glass tore my jacket. The car groaned, settling deeper. Gasoline stench burned my nose. I'm a doctor, I said steady. You're coming with me. The driver. He's gone. You're not. His legs were trapped under the collapsed seat. Water rising to his chest. I grabbed a pressure bandage and slapped it on the worst head wound. He didn't flinch. Just kept watching me. Analyzing. Even as he was dying. Doors jammed, he said. Windows too small. He was right. Broad shoulders, solid muscle. The physics were impossible. Water at his chin now. The car is groaning its death rattle. Oh, not on my watch. I grabbed a metal flashlight from the footwell. Cover your face. He didn't question. Just raised his good arm. I smashed the flashlight into the window frame, breaking away the glass teeth. Still tight. Brutal. Move now. He nodded once. Then pushed with his trapped legs. A raw, animal sound of agony tearing from his throat as broken bone ground against metal. Sheer will force his body free. He shoved through the window. I grabbed him under the arms, feet slipping on rocks. He was dead weight, impossibly heavy. For a moment we were stuck. Frozen in failure. Then, one final desperate heave from both of us. He came free. We tumbled backward into churning water. Cold stole my breath. I surfaced, gasping, dragging him with me. The car slipped beneath the waves with a final groan. We crawled up the muddy bank and collapsed on sodden grass. He lay on his back, breathing in ragged gasps, rain washing blood from his face in pink rivers. I knelt beside him, my own body shaking uncontrollably. Pulse, thready but strong. Compound fracture. Hypothermia. Internal injuries. But alive. His green eyes opened. Found me. He reached up with his good hand. His fingers closed around my wrists like iron. Name, he demanded. Dr. Lena Petrova. He held my gaze, burning the name into his soul. Lena Petrova, he repeated. I am Nikolai Volkov. You have my life. It is yours. Before I could process that strange, archaic statement. Engines. Not sirens. Deeper. More powerful. Headlights appeared. Not rescue vehicles. Large black SUVs surrounding us, skidding on slick asphalt. Doors flew open. Men emerged, not paramedics. Large, grim-faced, dark-clothed. Moving with lethal coordination. Carrying weapons. Who the hell was this man? The leader, a giant with a scar bisecting his cheek, rushed to Nikolai. Pak Han. Fear in his voice. Boss. Oh God. I'd pulled a king from the wreckage. Nikolai waved him off weakly. The doctor. See the doctor. The scarred man Gregor looked at me. Flat eyes. Emotionless. He saw a soaked, shivering woman, not a savior. I'm fine, I stammered, pulling my wrist from Nikolai's weakening grip. He needs an ambulance. Compound fracture, internal bleeding, concussion. We have our own doctor, Gregor said flatly. They moved with terrifying efficiency, lifting Nikolai onto a stretcher. He never took his eyes off me until they loaded him into an SUV. Door closed. Convoy vanished into the storm. I stood alone on the cliffside in pouring rain, the smell of gasoline and blood still in my nose. I stumbled back to my car, trembling violently. I'd done my job and saved a life. But as I drove home, Nikolai Volkov's words echoed, a chilling promise wrapped in debt. You have my life. It is yours. I had no idea what that meant. The look in his sea glass eyes told me I'd find out soon. Next morning, sunshine. Storm gone. World washed clean. I was in my kitchen trying to find normal in making coffee. Then a sound. Both. Growing and building from murmur to thunder. I walked to my window. Coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips. The street was lined with them. Dozens of black SUVs. Identical to last night's. Parked bumper to bumper, completely blocking the narrow street. And beside each one a man. Dark suits. Same still watchful posture. Not threatening. Not moving. A silent, immovable army. My doorbell rang. Single, polite chime. More terrifying than any battering ram. I opened the door. Gregor stood there holding a black velvet box. The Pakhan sends his gratitude. He offered the box. With trembling fingers I opened it. Inside, a key fob. And a single perfect white orchid. What is this? Gregor gestured to the army behind him. Protection. His pale eyes met mine. Your life saved his. His life and all who serve it are now yours. This is merely the first installment. I looked from the key to the sea of faces on my street. Nikolai Volkov hadn't sent a thank you card. He'd sent a legion. The debt had been called. And I understood. Saving Nikolai Volkov was the best and worst thing I'd ever done. The army stayed. 3 days. Black SUVs, silent sentinels. My neighbors peeked through the blinds. Delivery drivers turned around. My life in a glass box. Nikolai Volkov, the curator. 4th morning. Doorbell. Gregor. Expression unreadable granite. The Pakhan requests your presence. Requests. My voice is tight. He wishes to thank you personally. His eyes catalogued vulnerabilities in my living room. It would be unwise to refuse. No choice. Never was with these people. The car took me to the cliffs. Different, more secluded. A modern masterpiece carved into the cliff face. Glass, steel, sharp angles defying the precipice. The opposite of my cozy cottage. A fortress of air and light. Just as impenetrable. Inside, a solarium. Rare tropical orchids. And there, in a wheelchair, left arm in a cast and sling. Nikolai Volkov. Different in sunlight. Paler. Pain lines etched around the mouth and eyes. But the power was still there, a low hum in the air. He studied a large orchid, its petals mimicking a monkey's face. He looked up, smiled. Surprisingly gentle. Transforming his harsh features. Dr. Petrova. Lena. Thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair. Please. Sit. I perched on the edge, hands clasped. How are your injuries? Manageable. Thanks to you. Warm, appreciative gaze. My physician was impressed with your field work. The tourniquet, the splint. You kept a cool head. He touched the monkey orchid petal. It's a rare skill. To function clearly in chaos. It's my job. And you're very good at it. He leaned back, studying me. You have questions. Understatement. The cars. The men. It's excessive. Is it? Eyebrow raised, elegant and dangerous. The car didn't hydroplane, Lena. The brakes were cut. An assassination attempt. The men who did it are still out there. They know you pulled me from the wreck. That makes you a variable. A loose end. Conversational tone. Discussing the weather. I protect what's mine. I owe you a debt. Therefore you're under my protection. Most basic equation. The casual revelation hit like a physical blow. Someone tried to murder him. I was now a target. His expression softened, seeing my reaction. Don't be afraid. The protection is absolute. Nothing will happen to you. I've made the perimeter visible. To reassure you. Least reassuring thing I'd ever heard. A man in white, his doctor, entered, whispered something. Nikolai's face darkened for a fraction of a second. Then the pleasant mask returned. I must endure another round of poking and prodding. Genuinely weary sigh. Gregor will see you home. And Lena. Those piercing green eyes. The key I sent. It's for a residence in the city. Safer, more comfortable. I'd prefer you use it. Not a suggestion. Relocation order. Before I could protest, the doctor wheeled him away. Gregor drove me back in silence. The army is still on my street. As I got out, Gregor handed me a white business card. No name. Just a phone number in black. If you see anything. Anyone. Call. Day or night. Then gone. I stood on my sidewalk, card like lead in my hand. Trapped. The gilded cage assembling around me. Piece by polite, terrifying piece. The call came at 10 a.m. Gregor's voice. The Pakhan requires your medical expertise. Fresh wave of cold fear. Did something happen? Not him. One of the men. Our clinic is compromised. This was it. Not just listening. Participating. Refusing was unthinkable. I grabbed my medical bag, fingers clutching familiar leather like a rosary. We drove to a nondescript warehouse in the industrial district. Inside, converted to a stark, fully equipped medical bay. And there, on a stainless steel table under harsh fluorescent lights, a young man. Couldn't be more than 20. Face a mess of bruises, clutching his abdomen, breathing shallow and rapid. Internal bleeding. Standing over him, posture relaxed but eyes burning cold. Nikolai. Different today. Simple black turtleneck and trousers. Leaner. More dangerous. Sling gone, arms still in a cast. His gaze swept over me as I entered. Faint, approving smile. The Orchid House smile. Here in this grim setting, a grotesque parody. Dr. Petrova. Thank you for coming. This is Alexei. He was clumsy during training. I looked from Nikolai's calm face to Alexei's pain-twisted one. No training accident. The bruising pattern around his ribs. Repeated, focused strikes. My instinct overpowered fear. I moved to the table. Palpated his abdomen. He groaned. Rigid. Guarding. Ruptured spleen. He needs a hospital. No. Surgery. That's not possible, Nikolai said conversationally. You'll handle it. I stared aghast. Handle it? I'm an ER doctor, not a trauma surgeon. I don't have equipment, staff, or blood for this procedure here. Nikolai stepped closer, sucking air from the room. Pleasant mask vanished, replaced by a ruthless pragmatist. You have a scalpel. Sutures. Your hands. More than battlefield surgeons had for centuries. He's strong. You're skilled. He will live. Said with absolute certainty. As if his will alone dictated survival. If I try this here, he'll most likely die. Nikolai's green eyes locked onto mine. If you do nothing, he'll certainly die. The choice is simple. Prove the value of the protection I grant you. This was the test. Forcing me to get my hands dirty. Bind me to him with gristle and blood. If Alexei lived, miracle worker firmly in his debt. If Alexei died, it would be a lesson in the futility of defiance. I looked at the young man. His eyes, wide with pain and terror, met mine. Just a boy. I'd taken an oath. I need an assistant. Someone who won't faint. Nikolai's smile returned, a flash of white in the grim room. He gestured to Gregor. You'll assist the doctor. Following 2 hours. Nightmare of focused, brutal medicine. I worked under pressure I'd never known. Gregor, a man who broke bones for a living, was my sterile nurse. Opened Alexei in the cold warehouse. Found the bleeding vessel in his spleen. Ligated it. Hand steady. Mind razor sharp. Blocking everything but anatomy. The equipment is just adequate. Suturing by a single powerful lamp. When I tied the final stitch and Alexei's vitals stabilized, exhaustion hit so hard I had to lean against the table. I looked up. Nikolai is still there. Watching the entire time. Hadn't moved. Expression, rapt fascination. As if watching a master artist. He walked forward, eyes on mine, ignoring the patient. Reached out and with startling gentleness wiped blood from my cheek with his thumb. "Magnificent," he whispered, voice full of dark awe. "I knew you were a savior." The contrast was dizzying. Ruthless taskmaster gone, replaced by admiring patron. Rewarding me for an act he'd forced. Psychological masterpiece of manipulation. "He needs antibiotics. Proper post-op care." "It will be done," Nikolai cut me off, looking at me as if I'd hung the moon. "You've done enough. Gregor, take the doctor home. See that she rests." As Gregor led me out, I glanced back. Nikolai stood over Alexei, not looking at him but looking at the closed incision. My work. With something like reverence. In the car the silence was different. A subtle new respect replaced Gregor's flat assessment. I'd passed the test. Back at my cottage. A package on the doorstep. Small refrigerated box. Inside. 2 vials of powerful 4 antibiotic and a detailed administration schedule. No note. He'd already taken care of it. Had known I'd succeed. I sank onto my sofa, antiseptic and blood scent still clinging to my clothes. I'd saved a life. But in the belly of the beast, on command of the monster who ruled it. Nikolai Volkov was systematically dismantling every boundary I had, corrupting my oath, and drawing me deeper with terrifying threats and seductive approval. Unpredictable. Switching between soft and ruthless not randomly, but with precise, calculated intent. Forging me into a tool he needed. And the most terrifying part. A small, hidden, shameful part of me was thrilled by the challenge. 3 days of silence. I called in sick to St. Jude's. Couldn't face bright, sterile halls. Straightforward morality of stitching up car crash victims. My world was contaminated. Memory of the warehouse. Cold steel, copper smell of blood. Alexei's living tissue under my gloves. Nikolai's watching eyes. A film I couldn't scrub off. I jumped at every sound. Phone ringing, potential summons. Doorbell, threat. Silent army outside. Constant reminder my life wasn't my own. 4th day, late afternoon. Golden light turning long. Doorbell rang. Heart in throat. Peephole, not Gregor. Nikolai. Alone on my welcome mat. Left arm in a simpler black sling. Dark cashmere sweater, making his eyes look even more piercingly green. He looked ordinary. Handsome. That made it worse. I opened the door, body thrumming with nervous energy I couldn't name. Lena. Soft voice. Orchid house voice. Small, almost shy smile. I was in the neighborhood. Absurdity hung in the air. The pack-hon, in the neighborhood of a quiet suburban cottage. He didn't wait. Stepped past me. Gaze sweeping cluttered bookshelves, worn rug, framed family photos. Invasive species in my ecosystem. His presence altered the space's chemistry. I brought you a gift. Held up an elegant paper bag from a patisserie across the city that required weeks' reservations. To thank you. For Alexei. He's recovering well. Your work was masterful. Placed the bag on my coffee table like a peace offering. I said nothing. Just watched, arms crossed over chest. He turned. Eyes fell on a miniature abstract painting on my wall. Turbulent blue and gray. This is interesting. It has emotion. Chaos but controlled. It reminds me of the sea during a storm. He looked at me with a genuine spark of interest. Yes, exactly. Beauty and danger in the same moment. Step closer. Air grew thin. That's what you did in that warehouse. You existed in chaos and imposed order. You controlled the storm. Doing it again. Reframing violation as triumph. Seducing me with the perception of my own strength. Why are you really here, Nikolai? Softness evaporated. Replaced by astounding practical sharpness. Switch instantaneously. Whiplash. The men who tried to kill me have been identified. Morozov family. Rival outfit from the old country. They have a presence here. They're ambitious. Walked to my window looking at his own men. They know about you. Your name. Your face. Your cottage, while charming, is a security nightmare. Turn back, green eyes hard. The key I gave you. You'll use it tonight. You'll move into the apartment. Not a request. Fear returned, cold and sharp. Morozov family. Another set of monsters. Target on my back. I can't just abandon my life. Your life as you knew it is over, he stated. Not cruel but with finality. You can cling to the ghost and die, or accept the new one I'm offering and live. Gestured around the living room. This is a memory. The apartment is your future. Walked toward me, stopping close. I could see gray flecks in sea glass eyes, smell a faint, clean scent of soap. I'm not your enemy, Lena. Voice dropping to an intimate, hypnotic register. The world is full of wolves. I'm simply the one who's chosen to keep you safe. But my protection requires cooperation. Your obedience. Reached out with a good hand, gently tucked hair behind my ear. Touch electric. Jolt to my core. Caress and command. I'll send Gregor at 8 o'clock. Be ready. Turned and walked out. The door closed softly. I stood rooted, scent of him still in the air, phantom touch burning on skin. Looked at the patisserie bag. A gift. Reward for good behavior. Looked around my cottage. The life I'd built. A memory. 8 p.m., headlights. I stood by the door with a single hastily packed suitcase. I'd chosen the devil I knew over wolves I didn't. Gregor loaded my bag. The convoy pulled away. I watched my cottage, my old life, shrink and disappear in the rearview mirror. The apartment. Sleek, secure high-rise, heart of the city. Stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows, panoramic skyline view. Minimalist, expensive taste. Neutral tones, sharp lines. Beautiful. Utterly soulless. Gilded cage in the sky. Gregor handed me the key. The Pakhan will be in touch. Alone. Walked to the window. Looked down at the city. Lights twinkled indifferent. Safe. Trapped. Prized possession of a man who switched between connoisseur and killer with a blink. Phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text. Unknown. The view is better from the east window at midnight. Orion is clear tonight. And I stared. He knew I was here. Knew which apartment. Was watching. And talking about constellations. After delivering death threats and ultimatums. A sob, half despair, half hysterical laughter, caught in my throat. This was my life now. Terrifying, unpredictable dance with a man who could order execution and in the same breath, appreciate the night sky's beauty. Most terrifying part, as I looked toward the east window, part of me wanted to be there at midnight. To see what he saw. East window. Midnight. City. Diamonds on black velvet. Breathtaking cold. Orion hung there, the hunter. The belt has a perfect sharp line of 3 stars. He was right. The view was better. A view of a kingdom. His kingdom. I didn't hear from him for a week. Silence, new torture. Alone in a gilded cage with nothing but thoughts and the ghost of his presence. Expected brutal summons. Midnight call. Another test. Nothing. As if he'd forgotten me. Somehow more frightening than his attention. I spent days trying to read and watch television. Anything to fill the silence. Mind kept returning. Warehouse. Alexei's pulse under my fingers. Look in Nikolai's eyes. Drug addict in withdrawal. The drug. Dangerous, electrifying intensity of his world. The knock when it came was soft. Not Gregor's firm rap. Different. I opened it. Nikolai. Leaning against the doorframe. Exhausted. Shadows like bruises under the eyes. Cast off his arm, replaced by a sleek black brace. In his hands were 2 coffee cups. I was in the neighborhood. Ghost of a smile. Offered me a cup. Thought you might be tired of the silence. I took the coffee. Fingers brushing his. Small electric shock. He walked in, moving past me to the window. Looked out back to me. The Morozovs made their move last night. A shipment. Tried to hijack mine. I said nothing. Waited. Coffee warming hands. We were waiting for them. He turned. Green eyes flat, devoid of fire. Eyes of a man up all night counting costs. Messy business. 2 of my men are dead. 3 of theirs. Sipped coffee. 1 of theirs is still alive. For now. Clinical discussion of death was chilling and not boastful. Not angry. Please give me a report. Why are you telling me this? Because you're here. And you see things others don't. Set coffee down. Walk toward me. The man is still alive. Young. Like Alexei. Telling us everything which isn't much. Foot soldier. Stopped in front of me. Intense gaze. My men want to kill him. Logical. Sends a message. Clean. Held my breath. Sensing the trap. But you're a savior. You don't see logic. You see a life. So I'm asking you, doctor. What should I do with him? Heart hammered. Different from a phone call. This is about a strategy wrapped in a moral dilemma. Asking me to advise on execution. Please participate in the governance of his violent kingdom. I can't make that decision. You can. Eyes boring into mine. You pulled me from a car. Saved Alexei in a warehouse. You make decisions under pressure every day. This is no different. A life in the balance. Your word decides it. Free me power. Real power. Power of life and death. Most seductive, most corrupting thing he'd ever done. Thought of a young man. Terrified. Probably bleeding. Surrounded by enemies. Thought of Nikolai's dead men. Thought of the cold equation of his world. If he's just a foot soldier, killing him's a waste, I heard myself say. Voice surprisingly steady. Creates another martyr. Another reason for the Morozovs to seek revenge. If he's alive, he's a resource. A message of a different kind. Nikolai's expression didn't change, but a flicker of interest ignited in flat green eyes. What message? That you're not a mindless beast. That you're pragmatic. Value utility over vengeance. Parroting his lessons back. Keep him. Heal him. Use what he knows. Then let him go. Let him go. Dangerous softness. Yes. Let him go back to Morozov's. Tell them Nikolai Volkov isn't the monster they think. He's something worse. A man who can't be predicted. A man who saves enemies' lives. Met his gaze. Resolve hardening. That'll frighten them more than any corpse. Absolute silence. He stared. I saw calculations whirring. A strategist appreciating a bold new tactic. The collector finds a new, fascinating specimen. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face. Not a cold, predatory smile. Not a gentle orchid house smile. Pure, unadulterated admiration. You are extraordinary. He breathed. Reached out, cupped my cheek. Thumb stroking skin. Touch warm, possessive, filled with terrifying respect. You see the board 3 moves ahead. Pulled out the phone and sent a single one-word text. Put the phone away. Looked at me, hands still on face. Exhaustion gone from eyes, replaced by blazing, focused energy. You just saved a life and won a psychological battle with a single sentence. Do you understand the power you wield when you stop fighting it? Leaned in. Face close to mine. I could feel the warmth of his breath. The ghost of Lena Petrova, your doctor, is a shadow. This woman, gaze swept over me. The woman who stands in a penthouse and advises a Pakhan on war. She's a queen. And I find I cannot look away. He didn't kiss me. Didn't need to. Coronation complete. He'd forced me to look into the abyss. Instead of falling, I'd learned to fly. Straightened. Picked up coffee. Walked to the door. The silence is over, Lena. Be ready. The war's not. And I want you by my side for the rest of it. The door closed softly. I stood in the center of a silent, luxurious apartment. Cheeks still burning from his touch. I'd advised a crime lord to spare a life with cold, strategic logic. And felt a thrill of power so potent it dwarfed fear. Walked back to the east window. Hunter Orion has gone and vanished below the horizon. Wasn't looking at stars anymore. Looking down at the city. The chessboard. For the first time I wasn't a pawn. I was a player. Cage was still a cage. But I was no longer just the bird inside. I was learning to own the bars. Silence after he left was different. Like air after lightning. Could still feel the phantom pressure of his hand on my cheek. The heat of his admiration. You are a queen. Not flattery. Stark assessment. He saw the person I was becoming and approved the blueprint. 2 days in that charged silence. Didn't leave the apartment. Food delivered by a silent, unsmiling woman who looked like she could strangle a man and then neatly arrange cutlery. The world shrank to 4 walls and a panoramic view. A kingdom I was supposedly helping rule from a distance. 3rd evening, summons. Gregor is at my door. The Pakhan requests your presence at dinner. A dinner. Normality of the word jarring. Business meeting. At a restaurant. He believes your perspective would be valuable. I knew what that meant, his new weapon. Secret advisor. Polished and presented to show rivals he had a new, unpredictable asset. Thrill of fear and something darker, more exciting. The restaurant. Hushed tones, gilded mirrors, subtle clink of crystal. A place I'd only read about. Nikolai sat at a secluded booth in the back. Holding court. With him 3 older men. Expensive suits, hard faces, eyes missing nothing. Not legitimate business people. Nikolai saw me. Rose. Startling old-world courtesy that made other men look with sharpened interest. Perfectly tailored dark suit. Black braces are almost a fashion accessory. Exhaustion gone and relaxed, magnetic authority. Gentlemen. This is Dr. Lena Petrova. My personal consultant. Didn't introduce the men. I was to understand they were important. They were to understand I was under his protection and in his confidence. Held out a chair for me next to him. I sat. Felt the weight of gazes. Conversation resumed. Shipping lanes. Import tariffs. Proposed partnership. Surface. Dry. Subtext. Negotiation for the right to move illegal goods through the city port. Man opposite Nikolai. Bald, spiderweb tattoo peeking from collar. Pushed for larger percentage. Dmitri. I said nothing. Sipped water. Listened. Dmitri's language. Aggressive, bluster, veiled threats. But his eyes, when looking at Nikolai, held a flicker of deep-seated fear. Posturing from weakness. Nikolai calm. Parrying every demand with cool logic. Green eyes never leave Dmitri's face. Winning. But a fragile victory. Then the waiter approached to refill the water. Young. Nervous. Hand trembled slightly, reaching for Nikolai's glass. Tiny. Almost imperceptible. But I saw it. Saw waiter's eyes darted. Not to the water pitcher, but to a specific spot on the floor behind Nikolai's chair. A signal. Happened in a split second. Surge of pure medical intuition fused with new paranoid awareness Nikolai had drilled into me. Waiter straightened. Trembling hands slipped. Water pitcher fell, not toward the table, toward Nikolai's lap. Deliberate, clumsy feint. Down. I didn't shout. Launched myself from the chair. Threw the entire weight against Nikolai's shoulder. Shoved him sideways and down onto the banquette. Gunshot is deafening in a hushed room. The bullet meant for Nikolai's heart smacked into the wood paneling where his head had been. Splintering polished oak. Chaos erupted. Dmitri and others dove for cover. Gregor materialized from the shadows, weapon drawn. But the waiter assassin was moving, gun swinging for another shot. Nikolai, pinned beneath me, reacted not with panic but cold, furious efficiency. Shoved me off onto the floor under the table. Body covering mine in a protective crouch. Stay down, he snarled. From a limited view I saw his good hand flash out. No gun. Grabbed a heavy steak knife from the place setting. The assassin leaned over the table for a more precise shot, and Nikolai moved with viper speed. Didn't stab. Slashed upward. Single, precise, brutal motion across the man's gun wrist. Assassin screamed, raw animal. Gun clattered. Gregor on him in an instant. Took hold. Silence. Whole event, less than 10 seconds. In sudden ringing silence, Nikolai looked down at me. Still crouched over. Breathing even. Sea-glass eyes are not scared. Blazing with inferno of rage and something else. Wild, fierce triumph. Blood spattered on his cheek. Not his own. Reached down. The hand that had just wielded a knife with lethal precision was gently pulling me to my feet. The heart is trying to beat its way out of the chest, trembling violently. He didn't ask if I was okay. Cupped my face. He smears blood from his cheek onto mine. Primal, possessive gesture. You saw it, he breathed. Voice thick with adrenaline and awe. Before anyone. You saw the tremor. You saw the look. Turned to Gregor, hauling the unconscious assassin away. Voice turned to ice. Find out who sent him. Make it slow. Then back to me. Inferno in eyes softened, replaced by a look of such intense, overwhelming gratitude it stole my breath. Midst of chaos, terrified patrons, body being dragged away, he looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. You, he said. The word is a vow. You are my luck. You are my life. Didn't care about other men, the deal, the restaurant. Took my arm, grip firm, led me through stunned silence, out the back exit into a waiting car. In a dark, quiet sedan interior, adrenaline crashed. I began shaking uncontrollably. Just been in a shooting. I threw myself in front of a bullet. Nikolai didn't speak. Pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly against his chest. I could feel the strong, steady beat of his heart against my ear. He rested his chin on top of my head. I have built empires on fear and money, he murmured into my hair, voice low rumble in chest. But I've never had anything that truly mattered to lose. Until now. Held me all the way back to the apartment. On arrival he walked me to the door himself. Didn't try to come in. Sleep. No one will harm you. I've just made certain every enemy I have knows the price of touching you is a war they cannot survive. Left me standing in the doorway. Walked inside. To the bathroom. Looked in the mirror. Stranger stared back. Pale woman, wide, shocked eyes and a single faint smear of blood on her cheek. His blood. Brand. I'd saved his life. Not as a doctor saving a patient but as a player in his game. Moving the piece to protect the king. And in doing so become something more than a consultant, more than a partner. I was his. He was mine. The line I'd been desperately trying to hold had been vaporized in muzzle flash. And I found, staring at my reflection, that I didn't want to redraw it. Following 3 days, silence again. But different. Every hour a delivery. Not food. Not necessities. Gifts. First, antique medical text on battlefield surgery 1847 edition. Note, for your collection. And second, a rare orchid in a delicate glass terrarium. White petals with blood-red centers. Note, beauty with thorns. Like you. And third, first edition Pushkin poetry collection, Russian and English. Note, my mother's favorite. Now yours. And each gift is a piece of him. His history. His vulnerabilities. Building something. Not a cage. A bridge. Fourth day, late evening. Key in the lock. Him. Entered carrying the cold scent of outside air. Looked different. Ruthless energy banked. Contemplative. Almost subdued. Didn't speak. Walked to the window. Stood there, hands in pockets, watching the city. The man from the restaurant, he said finally. Voice quiet. He talked. It was Dmitri. Clumsy, desperate play for power. I remained seated, watching his broad back. What did you do? Long silence. I paid Dmitri a visit at his home. He has a daughter. She plays cello. Was practicing when I arrived. Turned. Sea glass eyes haunted. Not by guilt but by profound, weary understanding. I didn't touch her. Didn't touch him. I listened to her play for 10 minutes. Then I left. I stared confused. That's all. That was the message. He understood. I'd found what he loved. I showed him I could take it without raising a hand. I showed him the abyss. He'll leave the city by morning. His territory is now mine. Faint, tired smile. You were right. Fear's a tool. But anticipation of loss. That's a masterpiece. Evolving. Because of me. My words in this apartment about being unpredictable, about psychological warfare. Now his strategy. Realization was terrifying. Came and sat on the sofa opposite me. Leaning forward, elbows on knees. When I was a boy, my father made me watch him drown a man in a barrel of ice water. The man had stolen a trivial sum. Took a long time. My father said it was to teach me that emotion is a luxury we cannot afford. Eyes met mine. For the first time I saw a crack in granite, a glimpse of a boy forced to watch. For my entire life I've believed him. Reached out, not to touch but to trace the shape of my hand where it rested on the armchair. Gesture infinitely gentle. And then you, a woman who feels everything. Fear, compassion, duty. Yet you act with clarity that shatters my father's teaching. You feel and you're not weak. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Looked up. Eyes blazing with desperate raw honesty. You terrify me, Lena Petrova. You've reached into my chest and found a heart I didn't know was still beating. And I don't know what to do with it. Ultimate unpredictability. Not switch from soft to ruthless, but this. Vulnerability. The Pakhan laid bare. Weapon more potent than any threat. I stood. Walked over. Knelt on the floor before him, faces level. Took his hand, the one that had held the knife, in both of mine. Warm. Thought. You don't have to do anything with it, I said softly. Own heart pounding, frantic rhythm. You just have to let it beat. Shudder ran through him. Closed eyes for a moment as if in pain. When opened, the storm had stilled, leaving only deep, quiet intensity. Brought the other hand up to my face. Thumb stroking cheekbone. I am a monster, Lena. I've done monstrous things. I know. And I'm still here. Final surrender. Not his. My. He leaned forward and kissed me. Nothing like I'd imagined. Not claiming. Not a coronation. A question. Slow, searching, tender exploration. A confession. Lips soft. Touch hesitant as if I were the most fragile, precious thing he'd ever held. I could taste truth on his lips. The weight of the past and the terrifying hope of the future. When he broke the kiss, he rested his forehead against mine. Breaths mingling. I will ruin you, he breathed, promise and apology. You already have, I whispered back. And I kissed him this time with certainty that erased all doubt. I led him from the sofa through the sterile living room into the bedroom. Moon rising, casting a silver path across the city he ruled and the bed we now shared. There in darkness, Pakhan and the doctor vanished. Only Nikolai and Lena. Monster and savior. The impossible, beautiful line where they met and became one. He worshipped my body with reverence that brought tears to my eyes. I met his passion with fire I never knew I possessed. Not about power or debt. About two broken souls finding their missing piece in the most forbidden of places. Afterward he held me. Body curved around mine, face buried in my hair. I will burn the world for you, he whispered into the skin of my shoulder. Voice thick with sleep and emotion. Don't burn it. Just let me share it with you. Drifted into the first peaceful sleep I'd had in weeks. Woke in the morning. He was gone. But on the pillow next to me, a single perfect white orchid. And on the bedside table the key to the penthouse was gone. In its place, simple black keycard. No note. Message clear. The cage was open. Not a prisoner anymore. I was home. Picked up an orchid. Petals are delicate, impossibly pure. Thought of a ruthless man who admired beauty. Killer is terrified of their own heart. King who'd knelt before the doctor and shown scars. He was right. He'd ruin me. Shattered woman I was. From pieces helping me build someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who understood that in darkest worlds, the most dangerous thing of all wasn't the monster, but the love you could feel for him. As I held the orchid, I knew with terrifying, exhilarating certainty I wouldn't have it any other way. Freedom of keycard. More exquisite cage than any locked door. 2 days I didn't leave. The world outside felt distant, unreal. Dream-eyed had before waking in this new, sharper reality. Found myself listening for the sound of his key, body thrumming with a new kind of anticipation. Fear still there, cold, silver thread woven through everything. But now intertwined with a desperate, addictive need for his presence. Third day. Phone rang. His voice strained. Words clipped. Lena. I need you. A simple statement sent a jolt through me. Not command. Request. Laced with urgency. What's wrong? Where are you? Cliffside house. Gregor will bring you. Hurry. Line dead. Gregor is waiting downstairs. Face grimmer than usual. Drive silently, tense. At arrival, controlled chaos. Nikolai stood in the war room. A large digital display showing live feed from a drone hovering over the private Morozov dock. Men patrolled with rifles. Tense postures. Fortified. Expecting assault. Nikolai turned as I entered. All black. Movements are sharp with barely contained energy. Eyes found mine. Some tension in the shoulders eased. They're waiting. They know we took the territory. Expecting an attack. I studied screen. Mind automatically assessing patterns, vulnerabilities. They're waiting for the beast. So we send them the ghost. Nikolai's gaze sharpened on me. Explain. Your father taught you emotion was a liability. Morozovs believe the same of you. They expect rage. Bloody, direct retaliation. Pointed to the screen. So we give them nothing. Don't attack the dock. We isolate it. Cut power, communications, and water. Let them sit in the dark in silence. Let their own fear become the weapon. A slow, terrifying smile spread across his face. The smile of a predator discovering a new, more exquisite way to hunt. Psychological siege. Exactly. While they're staring into the dark, waiting for the beast to charge, we dismantle the rest of their operation. Shell companies. Legitimate fronts. Bank accounts. We don't just break their army. We erase their history. Silent for a long moment. Eyes locked on the screen, but I knew he wasn't seeing the dock and seeing the elegant, brutal architecture of the plan. Turned to Gregor. You heard her. Make it happen. Total blackout on the dock. And get me everything on their financials. I want their money vaporized by sunrise. Orders issued with quiet efficiency were more frightening than any shouted command. Next 48 hours. Lived in the war room. Slept in short, fitful shifts on a leather couch. Ate meals brought to us. Watched our silent, digital war unfold. I saw the side of Nikolai I'd only glimpsed, brilliant, ruthless CEO of criminal empire. Understood finance, international law, and cybersecurity. Dismantling Morozovs with keystrokes and whispered commands. Far cry from a man who'd wielded a steak knife in a restaurant. Second night, watching live thermal imaging of the dock. Morozov men becoming cold, sluggish blobs in darkness. He finally spoke of it. My mother loved poetry. Would read Pushkin to me. Said it taught the soul to feel in a world that wanted to numb it. Voice quiet in the hum of servers. Looking at the screen, but my mind is decades away. Gestured vaguely to the room. To the world he commanded. All of this, is the monument I built to her memory. A fortress to ensure no one could ever again take what he took from her. Didn't elaborate on what had been taken. Didn't need to. Pain was a living thing in the room. She would be horrified by me. Simple stark fact. I looked at him. Sharp, beautiful lines of profile etched in the screen's blue light. I think she'd understand her son survived. And that he found someone who sees the poetry he tries to hide. He turned his head. Eyes searching mine in semi-darkness. Raw vulnerability. I saw there was more disarming than any display of power. Reached out. Fingers intertwined with mine. A silent, desperate clutch. The following morning the report came in. Morozov's financial network is in ruins. Accounts frozen. Assets seized by a labyrinth of forged documents and hostile takeovers. Men on the dock, cold, starving, rattled by silence, had begun turning on each other. War is not won with bullets, but with silence and numbers. Nikolai stood. Offered me his hand. Come. Time to send the final message. We drove to the dock in a single car. Just us and Gregor. Morozov's men are haggard. Weapons on the ground. Spirit broken. Their leader, thick neck, hollow eyes, was forced to his knees before Nikolai. Nikolai looked down. Expression devoid of triumph. Cold, empty. The Pakhan. You threaten what is mine. That was your error. Man spat on the ground. Kill me and be done with it, Volkov. Nikolai's lip curled. Death is kindness you haven't earned. Turn to Gregor. Take his right hand. The one he would have used to touch her. Please send it to the remaining Morozov elders. Tell them this is the only part of their operation I'll be returning. The order given with such casual brutality made my stomach turn. This was the monster, the reality I'd chosen. But as Gregor moved forward, Nikolai's gaze flicked to me. Saw a flicker of horror I couldn't quite suppress. Saw the doctor in me recoil. And he stopped. Wait. Word echoed in sudden silence. Gregor froze. Morozov, the leader, looked up confused. Nikolai's eyes locked on mine. Storm raging. Beast warring with a man who loved poetry. The man who loved me. Took a slow breath. Jaw tight. Blind him, he amended. Voice low. A life for a life. But he keeps his hand. Still monstrous. Still mutilation. But a choice. A compromise. For me. He'd chosen ghost over beast. Turned back on the scene. Took my arm. Led me away. Shielding me from the execution of the amended order. Didn't speak until back in the car. I told you. You are the chain. Voice rough as the car pulled away. I looked at him. At the cost of that restraint etched on the face. Understood the actual depth of his power. Not in brutality. In control. The ability to leash the monster for me. Reached over. Took his hand. Laced fingers through his. We drove back to the cliffside house in silence. War behind us. Uncertain future ahead. He'd built an empire on fear. But creating something new with me. Something more fragile and infinitely more powerful. As the fortress came into view, glowing in the setting sun, I knew I'd stand with him. Not just in wars he fought, but in peace he'd never known how to keep. King had his queen. Together we'd decide what kind of kingdom we'd rule. Silence after the dock was different. Not charged, silence of anticipation or heavy silence of dread. Quiet after the storm. When the world holds its breath and waits to see what survives. We returned to the cliffside house. Nikolai didn't lead me to the war room or the study. Led me to the solarium. A room of orchids and soft light. The setting sun poured liquid gold through the glass walls. Setting exotic flowers ablaze. Contrast with the grim, cold dock was jarring. He released my hand. Walked to the same monkey orchid he'd been admiring the first time I was here. Didn't touch it. Just looked back at me. For the first time in my life I felt fear on that dock. Not for my life. But for what I would become in your eyes if I gave that order. I stood still. Heart aching for this impossibly complex, broken man. He once asked me what forged the monster. It was the lesson that mercy is a death sentence. That compassion is a crack through which enemies pour. I built my entire life on that truth. Finally turned. Sea glass eyes haunted. And then you. You're a walking, breathing contradiction to everything I know. You are compassion. You are mercy. And you're the strongest weapon I've ever wielded. Walked toward me. Stopping so close I could see gray flecks in the irises. There was a faint tremor in his hand as he raised it. You've asked for nothing. Not freedom, not money, not power. You've only ever given. Your skill, your counsel, your heart. Reached into the trouser pocket and pulled out a small black velvet box. My breath caught. Different from the one that held the key. This is older and worn at the edges. I am a man of violence. I cannot change that. This world is my nature. But you are my grace. He opened the box. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, a ring. Not a gaudy diamond. Single deep blue sapphire. Color of midnight ocean. Square cut. Surrounded by a delicate, almost antique setting of white gold. Elegant, powerful, utterly unique. Like him. This was my mother's. The only thing I have left of her. The only thing of beauty my father didn't destroy. He took the ring from the box. Hand steady now. I have no right to ask this of you. I'm offering you a life in shadows. A throne next to a monster. A love that will forever be paid for in blood and fear. He went down on one knee. The world stopped. The Pakhan, most feared man in the city, on his knees before me. Not as conqueror but as supplicant. Lena Petrova. You are my savior, my strategist, my chain, and my only grace. Will you do me the impossible honor? Will you be my wife? Tears streamed down my face. Hot and silent. I looked at this man, killer, king, little boy who'd lost his mother, man who'd just chosen blindness over amputation for me. Thought of blood on my hands, literally and metaphorically. Thought of safe, sterile life I'd left behind in year. Life that now felt like a pale, insubstantial dream. This was real. This was terrifying. This was a choice to walk into darkness, not as a prisoner but as a queen. To take his scarred hand and try to build something more than just an empire of fear. There was no other choice, only him. I reached out my trembling left hand. Yes, I whispered. Word. A vow, surrender, beginning. Yes. Sound escaped him, a ragged mix of sob and laugh. He slid a cool, heavy band onto my finger. It fit perfectly as if it had always been meant to be there. Sapphire glowed, a deep, captive piece of night sky. He rose, pulled me into his arms, crushing me against him, face buried in my hair. I could feel the wild, relieved beating of his heart against mine. I will spend every breath of my life making sure you never regret this, he vowed, voice muffled against my neck. I know. He pulled back slightly, hands cradling my face, thumbs wiping away tears, eyes shining, storm in them finally perfectly calm. Moya Koroleva, he breathed, my queen. Then he kissed me. Tasted like redemption. The following morning I woke in his bed at the cliffside house. Sapphire is unfamiliar with a beautiful weight on the finger. Sun high. Nikolai is already gone. But on his pillow, a single perfect white orchid. And propped against it, a note written in his sharp, elegant script. The world is yours. Let us go and see it together. And I looked at the ring, the orchid, and the note. Thought of a man who could order blinding with one breath and write a love note with the next. Unpredictable, mercurial, terrifying man I'd agreed to marry. A slow smile spread across my face. No fear. Only thrilling, profound certainty. Found him in the war room, but different now. Screens dark. Maps cleared. He stood at the window looking out at the sea. Simple white shirt, sleeves rolled to elbows. He turned as I entered. Face transformed with a smile that was purely, devastatingly human. Come. Held out a hand. The war is over. It's time to build. I crossed to him. Took his hand, sapphire catching morning light. What will we build? He pulled me close. Arms wrapping around me from behind. Chin resting on my head as we both looked out at the endless horizon. A kingdom where doctor and king can exist in the same breath. Where mercy isn't weakness, but the most terrifying weapon of all. Where monster learns to love light, and savior learns that sometimes darkness is where the most important work is done. He turned me in his arms. Sea glass eyes holding mine with absolute certainty. We'll build a place where two broken people made each other whole. And we'll defend it with everything we are. I reached up, touched his face. This man who'd gone from drowning stranger to terrifying captor to unlikely partner to love I never knew I needed. Then let's begin. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that made him look like the boy his mother must have known. The boy who loved poetry before the world taught him to love violence. As he leaned down to kiss me, morning sun painting us in gold, I understood the final truth of our story. I'd pulled the Mafia boss from the sinking car. And in return he'd given me not just his life, but his entire broken, beautiful world. I, Dr. Lena Petrova, was ready to rule it. Not as a prisoner. Not as a victim. Not even as a savior. But as a queen who'd earned her throne, not through birthright or conquest, but through the hardest currency of all. By choosing to stand beside a monster and teaching him, day by brutal day, how to be a man. Army of black SUVs still lined the streets when we needed them. Silent sentinels still watched from shadows. Enemies still plotted in dark corners. But now when they looked at Nikolai Volkov, they didn't just see Pakhan, ruthless king of the underworld. They saw him standing beside me. Doctor who'd pulled him from death. A woman who could save a life in a warehouse and win a war in a penthouse. A strategist who understood true power wasn't in the violence you could inflict, but in the violence you chose not to. We'd become something new. Something unpredictable. Something more dangerous than either of us had been alone. Monster with conscience. Savior with teeth. As we stood together in sunlight, sea crashing against cliffs below, I realized this was what I'd been searching for all along in those long-year shifts. In that sterile world of straightforward morality and temporary fixes. Purpose. Power. A place where my strength mattered. I'd found it in the last place I ever expected. In the arms of a man who ruled from shadows, who'd given me a kingdom built on fear and asked me to help him transform it into something more. The gilded cage had become a throne. The prisoner had become queen. And the ghost of who I used to be had been reborn as someone infinitely more powerful. Dr. Lena Petrova had saved Nikolai Volkov's life on a storm-swept cliff. But it was Lena Volkov, queen of shadows, strategist of mercy, woman who owned Monster's heart, who would help him save his soul. The war was over. Silence had been broken. And together we'd write the next chapter of the story that began with a sinking car and a desperate rescue. A story that would be whispered in fear and awe throughout the city's darkest corners. The story of Pakhan who loved an orchid. And the doctor who taught the beast to choose grace. Our story. Written in blood and starlight, in strategy and surrender, in impossible space where darkness met light and learned to dance. And I wouldn't change a single terrifying, beautiful moment of it.